I will miss Chernobyl. Chernobyl is like a deep wound when it heals, leaving its mark, and it reminds you of it over the years with an extra scar on your skin, or there, deep within our souls, where we keep our secrets, our fears, our defeats. Defeats like the one on the night of April 26, 1986, which changed the world. But today, Chernobyl is also so much more. I would tell you of a journey through time that began quietly and almost imperceptibly, and from the very first moment did not immediately drag me into its vortex of history, personal dramas, and a wide range of deeply contrasting emotions, but instead, day after day, it was able to gradually conquer me in a crescendo of discoveries, unexpected encounters, and breathtaking sunsets in a place that is more reminiscent of Lapland or a northern European country in autumn, and not, as one might expect, the most radioactive place in the world. Good morning, new episode here from Chernobyl, and as you can see behind me, as you may have already read in the title, today is dedicated to visiting Pripyat, the city that symbolizes the Chernobyl tragedy. It was completely abandoned, along with numerous buses, within 36 hours of the nuclear power plant explosion. This is the famous amusement park that remained here and was never opened. Pripyat was a city, a model not only for Ukraine, but also for the entire Soviet Union, because it practically represented the height, though I won't say of luxury, but rather the peak of life ambition for those people who were living at the end of the 1980s. This is because Pripyat, the city where over 45,000 people lived, had practically everything one could wish for, from modern sports centers, a large and well-equipped swimming pool, and all the amenities and features that cities of that era could offer, and the Soviet Union aimed to be at least a little on this type of model. But unfortunately, after the explosion of April 26, 1986, all the inhabitants had to immediately leave the city, which remained like this. This one behind me is the entrance to the city of Pripyat. Here's the monument with the sign, let's say, in memory of the city of Pripyat. Down at the end here, the road you see is completely straight and then goes up. There we find the now famous bridge, and not for good reasons, because on the night of the explosion, practically everyone, most of whom were in Pripyat, went there to witness the lights of the exploded power plant. This one, as I was telling you, the infamous Bridge of Death, can be seen over there. The sarcophagus that we visited today, by the way, is truly remarkable. The light now is really wonderful, even if the place should perhaps leave us with other adjectives here. Anyway, this is what is behind me. In addition to the tracks that pass under here, which we can see behind me, there is also the whole red forest here. Let's say we saw one of the scenes, perhaps the most unforgettable, touching also, as seen in the famous Sky HBO series, with all the people who moved here from the city of Pripyat down there, including children, to look at the light over there from the power plant that had exploded, and which nevertheless attracted a lot of attention, even without knowing the danger of all the radioactive dust that was falling on the heads of the children and on all the various families. All the people who were here, together, with "They're all dead in the evening." Today I arranged a special time to fly here without anyone. It's 8 in the morning and it's quite cold, but we can start flying here. After conquering Pripyat with several flights from the Ferris wheel and the central square, we're now looking for some of the city's iconic landmarks. Then in the afternoon, we'll also move on to another local landmark, a more political one, namely the Duga radar, but you'll find out about that in another video. Now, the guide told us that when we enter the premises here in Pripyat, since everything works very strangely and there are many police checks due to a strong presence of stalkers who are people who break in illegally to live in some abandoned buildings and premises, he told us to make quick visits anyway, always in silence, and to be cautious. Here we are on the first road built in Pripyat. So it's a main road where, as you can see, there's practically no one, with buildings surrounded by plants and these colors that autumn offers, which are truly wonderful. Situations like this one here in, let's say, the medical chair that has been left in front of the main entrance to this old hospital here in Pripyat is actually the product of stalkers. Stalkers are those individuals who enter and live illegally in the exclusion zone. Many also organize tours of this kind, which are therefore illegal, and so we often find ourselves with objects positioned like this in a somewhat theatrical manner. But in reality, what actually happens is that they only serve to fuel a little bit of everything that's going on behind the scenes at Chernobyl. In fact, after spending 3 full days here, I have to say that it's very different from what I originally expected, and also very different from the way Grandpa described it to me. Obviously, I'm not talking about movies, TV series, or things like that, where you might expect a series of facts or events to be altered or changed in order to perhaps make the whole story seem more interesting or engaging to the audience. But I'm somewhat perplexed and confused by those documentaries. I've seen so many over the years that show something that isn't actually there, or at least not in the way it's often portrayed. To be clear, what am I referring to with this statement? When we talk about Chernobyl to someone, the first association is almost always death, destruction, and radiation. That's true, but we have a lot to learn from Chernobyl, even for the benefit of all humanity, for people everywhere. In fact, in addition to being, although life has been discovered in this remarkable area, fascinating information has been uncovered about the complex evolution of various animal species. Here in this environment we find horses, wild boars, wolves, and even 2 impressive bears. But how interesting would it be for humans to truly understand how, for example, the great tit, a small yet resilient bird, adapted to this challenging scenario and ultimately became the strongest animal species in the entire exclusion zone today. Among the many different rules that are enforced here and generally throughout the exclusion zone, it is absolutely mandatory not to put anything on the ground, not to pick anything up, not to take anything away, and not to pet animals that appear to be carriers of radiation. I don't know how credible this is, but these are the official documents they made us sign. Curiosity outside the bar that, as we saw a little while ago, there were also vending machines that operated with coins, and unlike, let's say, our normal use today, which I can also remember quite clearly, here the vending machine dispensed drinks such as water, lemonade, and similar beverages, and served them to everyone in the same glass. So there were no changing glasses and there were no cans like in our case today, but instead everyone drank directly from there. This was a common practice at the time, and it was quite different from what we are used to now, where each person typically gets their own disposable cup or can. We are instead visiting one of the schools in Pripyat. This one instead, where we are now, was the cinema of Pripyat, because there were not only sports fields, the swimming pool, but there was also the theater, there was the cinema, and there was the music school. There was really everything that we typically find in most medium-sized Italian cities, those with around 40 to 50,000 inhabitants, just as people lived here in Pripyat. And behind the cinema we find here, as you can see behind me, what was the music school. So Pripyat was truly a city with everything that was necessary, even for a comfortable and fulfilling life. A better future, and which, however, was interrupted. So suddenly the level of radioactivity here in Pripyat is extremely variable, because we find in the walking points, let's say, where we are even now, values normally more or less, or in any case, the measurement values are very similar even in the city of Chernobyl itself. We are around 0.3 to 0.4, so these are quite normal values, always comparing it to the first measurement made in Fiumicino, which recorded 0.32. Here we are in Pripyat, but the big difference is when you get close to the nuclear power plants or the moss growing on the ground along the road, because there, in those spots, we also get readings of 26 to 30, and sometimes even higher. This building right behind me was actually a 2-story supermarket where shopping trolleys remained inside even after the disaster. You can still see all the signs for the various aisles of the supermarket. And this spot right here, where there is this small door, now covered with an iron cap, let's say, is considered to be one of the most radioactive points here in Pripyat. This is because the supermarket was later used by the liquidators in the very first moments of reinforcement. after the explosion, and therefore evidently in some way that part of the area was contaminated, and our Geiger counter now reads 3,400, which is really a lot, especially if you think that the standard safe level is only 0 on 3. Now we have arrived at the famous Pripyat swimming pool. Formally, we are not allowed to go inside to visit it, so instead I will send him on an expedition. Only that the windows are quite big, but there are trees everywhere, so it is not very easy to fly, at least not with such a big drone as this one, unfortunately. The small drone that I had previously reviewed here on the channel broke an engine before even taking off, so now let's try like this with the bigger one anyway. He told me that if it crashes we can go and recover it, so at least there is that reassurance. Is there something else we should consider, or are we ready to proceed? This building right behind me is the fire station, the very one made famous by the popular and widely acclaimed HBO series, where the main drama unfolded in the story of the firefighter and his wife, who both lived in Pripyat, and the firefighters who were the very first to respond to the plant after the explosion, obviously completely unaware of the real and extremely serious risks. The building just behind us was the police station. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that the biggest problem here isn't so much the radiation that we find floating around here in the air, let's say. The main problem, the real issue, is when you enter enclosed spaces like this one, where there are tiny microparticles of dust floating in the air, and these particles are definitely radioactive. Now we have arrived here in the very center of the city, where the official stadium was constructed here in the city of Pripyat, which, in addition to having the name that the guide mentioned, avant-garde, even though all the states of the Soviet Union had stadiums with the same name, was also the largest of all of them. This is because here, Pripyat, being a model city, the stadium would be used not only for football matches but also for all those events, even more specifically the political propaganda ones that were going on at the time. It had not been done on such a grand scale for this particular reason. Here, the real problem is that this stadium has never seen the light of the inauguration or of any event, because it should have been inaugurated on May 1st, 1986, which is 5 days after the explosion of the nuclear power plant. Today, the stadium is still standing, almost as if it is flying. It's completely covered in trees, like the entire city of Pripyat, but from above with a drone, which is why we're here. You can even see the stands and more or less the entire appearance of the stadium. This is the control room of Reactor 4, where essentially in just 7 seconds after pressing the AZ5 button, the world changed. Thank you all.